All right. Boss, would you like to be host?
Okay.
Sounds good. Um, do with the call what you will, whatever makes sense for you, and I will look at the recording later and post it. But thank you very much. I'm gonna keep vacating.
Vacate.
Enjoy.
Ooh.
Thanks.
Enjoy.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, truly.
It's such a wonderful place. Yeah, wonderful culture. So what are we doing today?
We're milling about.
My
We're
cat,
milling the
my cat has a UTI, so she's peeing in the bathtub and there's blood everywhere. That's where I'm at. Like that's what's going on. It's just terrible.
Oh, golly.
Well,
Yeah.
give you a little time to get it together, and then maybe you can give us an update, Jesse, on what you're working on. I saw in the Plex a little story, but maybe you can let us know what's happening with you.
Yeah, definitely. Right now or later?
If you're ready, go for it.
Sure. So,
Hmm.
yeah, when you start a passion project that doesn't have an intention to make money, guess what happens? You don't make money. So that's where I'm at. I've loved every second of building this and just, when you give it away, it becomes bigger than you. And that's my favorite part of a project is when it becomes larger than the self. And
Mm.
we're at that point. We have 400 people that are brilliant. Every single one of these people are amazing. They give gifts. And I just talked with Dave over at Campfire and yesterday for a couple hours, and it was amazing because we both had a realization that this is really not about getting your needs met necessarily. Obviously, that's like a given. You have to thrive, but it's all about you have gifts, give them. Our community needs them. And we need people's contribution to community in their local zip code and to the people that are surrounding them. And a lot of times we're living in this scarcity mode and or we just don't have the resources to give, but we do. We always have something to give. So it
Jesse,
kind
could you summarize what this is and what it does and what's your vision for it?
Yeah, so what it does is it helps people, first of all, define how they thrive. And in that, that is partly their ikigai, what
Mhm.
they love, what they're good at, do what the world needs, that kind of thing, be that. And in that, you're able to give back to your community. And
Mm.
so it's a matching system. So
Yeah.
once you do that definition, you're immediately matched, your needs and your haves are mapped into the system. So then there's an automatic version of everyone getting matched up with each other's needs and haves. And it's a beautiful self-sustaining ecosystem. And it's already happening. People are getting matched up. Um, but yeah, it just needs a little bit of the next lift.
Mhm. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are so many of these initiatives here in Bend also that are trying to pull community members together and assist people and so on. But um, my observation is a lot of it is fractured. We're working on it is really a lack of coordination, and how in the world do you get into coordination on things of that sort? Um, some communities have been able to pull together initiatives that engage everyone, and you have to have finance in the middle of it somehow because even when people invest, and donate, their time and money, um, if it is not coordinated in some form, it just doesn't have the effectiveness that you're looking for. And
Yeah. Yeah, I love that we're a talent solutions company and we have a full sophisticated talent management system on the back end so people can, post jobs for free and get matched to candidates for free. It is a talent system. So it's an economic resilience factor here and it's just a matter of people, sharing their jobs and building their teams.
Yeah.
But we are pivoting to events. So those people that are already having, a lot of participants come into their event or their community event, what happens, they meet and then they're really excited about doing things together and they have a dinner and they have music. And then what happens is the momentum subsides after the event stops. I've noticed that for all my life, that's what events do, is they bring people together and then there's not a mechanism to pull these people together consistently in between events, the annual events. So this is what that is now. And so we're pivoting to the event industry. So community leaders can really provide the in-between mechanism.
So do you have found ways now to monetize this? I'm sorry,
I'm
it's a
sorry.
horrible word, I know, but I mean, you have to make a living somehow, right?
Yeah, so the money would hopefully go into the event industry because there is money in the event industry. So to ask the event producer to give this opportunity for their participants to match up with each other instantly within the event and after the event, so it lives on. I think that's where the money is going to come from.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
So we have Carl. I saw a new face behind this screen. Do you want to introduce yourself? Hi there.
So, hello. So, is there a topic for today or just general introduction?
We're just talking. We haven't found a topic yet.
Okay. So I'm been working on getting the following up from the sessions I had a couple weeks ago, which was mostly people from this community that attended. Got a meeting this afternoon to talk with somebody about setting up a Google workspace and things, and then my thoughts are that have a Google group that would be for that. Today's moonshots, but it gets into the whole goal things like Jim Collins talks about big, hairy, audacious goals or whatever too. I see there being a connection there, but I'll be working on putting some stuff together and need to wrap up the last week of the term here, get some papers done by next Sunday. So I'm keeping myself busy there.
All right. Should I just call Mike? How are you doing?
Juggling many things, getting ready to head to Taipei and then Manila at the end of next week. And then I'll have a 3 or 4 day stop in Seattle on the way home from Manila to see my folks. My daughter's meeting me up there, and for the first time in more than a year and a half, she'll get to see her grandparents, as well as some of our old family friends. That'll be nice.
Cool.
But unfortunately, we just found out that some of the key people we wanted to meet in the Philippines are tied up. So it's very frustrating when you're trying to organize these kind of long distance meetings and everybody has, 5 things going on at the same time. It used to be you set up things 5 weeks in advance. And if you try to do that now, they inevitably cancel and reschedule, and you've got I don't know if face-to-face meetings make any sense anymore.
Yeah, in the age of Zoom. Can we ask what you're working on?
Well, in Taipei, I'm giving a keynote speech at the World Innovation, Technology, and Services Alliance. It's about 50 national IT trade associations. They meet every year.
Cool. What are you going to tell them, Mike?
Pardon me?
That sounds really cool. What are you going to tell them?
It's a talk on the need for digital leadership and political vision in the digital area. So it's a little bit what we did in the Clinton administration starting in 1993. If you don't get the president or at least the vice president or the prime minister engaged and at least saying a few things about where we're going, everybody tries to pull in 7 directions and you don't get anywhere. Or you get 7 different directions sent. Everybody's confused. And we're seeing more and more of that. The most obvious example is in the area of encryption, where the police hate the idea of encryption. Cybersecurity experts and privacy advocates feel it's essential to have end-to-end encryption.
Mhm.
So we kind of stumble along. But there's many other places where you have these conflicts between agencies and interests. Online copyright's another one, where it's not just the AI companies that want to be able to share and easily reuse content. Um, Everybody from librarians to scholars to educators don't think it's a good idea that somebody has to pay every time they want to use a sentence of somebody else's words. But we have no vision. We have 7 visions. We have the pay per play vision of certain people in the copyright industry who would redesign the internet, take steps to make sure there's no anonymity, so everybody can be tracked and everybody can be charged when they download a Britney Spears video.
Wow.
But it's also going to be interesting because Taiwan is in a bit of a political, I'm trying to think of the right word. Things are a little unstable right now. A lot of different tension.
Why
The
should
US
they be
has
different than anybody else?
Well, they're different because unlike the US with its 3 branches of government, they have 5,
Oh my.
and they're not all in the hands of the same party.
Oh,
So it's an interesting time. Have any of
How
you been
much?
to Manila? I've never been to Manila, so I'm curious
Yeah.
if anybody has any reflections on
I'm not.
how to understand the place.
Oh, it's a very modern city. There's nothing unique about it. I mean, if you have been in Singapore, it's the same. But I mean, your statement about lack of vision, that's really true for every corner of the place, isn't it? I mean, there's just so much conflict around any topic.
Yeah.
Where so how do you go in any direction? You're just twirling.
Yeah, my focus is on the digital vision of the future and how to get people less scared and more excited. We did that incredibly well in the 90s. And of course, we had companies spending hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars over the course of 10 years to paint the happy image of uh, Apple books or MacBooks that let you talk to grandma and digital libraries that school children in the most remote corners of the country could use. And we achieved a lot of that. We also ended up with a lot of people abusing the system. There is a vision that I've just gotten very excited about. One of my colleagues at the Carnegie Endowment has come out with a book called The Information Animal. And it's all about taking an ecology approach to the information environment that we work in. So trying to understand all the different things that influence the information that we digest and all the things that affect how we interpret that information. Um, Alicia Wanless is brilliant, Wanless, and this book is not getting nearly as much attention as it should. I will put a link to the webcast that she just did for there's a let me just see if I can pull it up quickly. There's a podcast called Spies and Lies, I think it is, but very well done. And yeah, no, Secrets and Spies.
Hmm.
And I think you'll enjoy
Mike,
that. Rather than read
you,
the book, you can listen to this. It's 80 minutes, and you can watch the first 5 minutes of highlights, but I encourage you to dig a little deeper.
Thanks.
Did someone have a question? I heard the start of a question.
Yeah, Mike, you said all the things that influence the information you were summarizing her.
Yeah, the information that we can have access to and how we react to that information. A lot of that second part is cultural, whether you trust the sources that you rely on, or unfortunately, we've given people in many, many countries very little reason to trust anything about anybody from anybody. And so we have all the conspiracy theories, and she spends a lot of time on conspiracy theories. She started her career as getting a degree in Russian, and back then, everything was peace and harmony, and the Cold War was over, and they were actually closing down Russian programs because nobody was taking Russian language, certainly the advanced Russian language courses. But she stuck with it, and thank God she did, since they're doing such a great job of sharing of all sorts of crap, and not just in English. Obviously, they use Russian to reach a lot of audiences, from the Russian speakers in Estonia and Lithuania to Russian speakers in Central Asia. And of course, Putin has completely brainwashed his own people. He's had 35 years to do that. Although they must be getting a little bit upset. I mean, when every family knows somebody who's sent off to Ukraine and come back dead or wounded.
I just had a conversation with some colleagues about our challenge with AI. It's sort of the cotton candy of cognition, where it looks like it makes sense. It seems to convey meaning, but it sort of evaporates and lacks mortality and depth and actual nuance and understanding, because the underlying machinery and mechanism is basically a glorified advanced text recognition word processor on steroids, not something that actually has understanding or meaning involved in that. And it's popping up. The reason it sort of is a dimension of this same domain that your colleague is in, right? Because there's on a course level, there's the interface of people with bad information and propaganda and stuff designed to manipulate and influence and deceive. But on a more subtle and fine-tuned level, the same operand is at work in AI.
Have you trademarked that phrase yet? Make sure I got that right. The cotton candy of information, or the cotton?
No, the cotton candy of cognition.
Cognition.
of writing meets cognition. Yeah.
That's quite brilliant, actually.
Yeah. But where our offerings are in the human touchy-feely energetic spaces and dynamics by and between people, and where challenges and problems can be mapped back to that domain, and how we can help people co-creating together and organizations clear the blocks and restore flow and connection on a living basis between people. And at this point, every time we can viscerally, and I think this is true on a pretty wide level, that we can viscerally tell within a sentence whether AI has been used to generate it.
Mhm.
Um, and if it tips over 15, 20% of just like cleaning grammar and or doing advanced word processing function, if it tips over that into actual purporting to be content, we immediately reject it and stop reading.
Do all of you read Mike Masnick's Tech Dirt blogs? I mean, he had a wonderful tweet just recently where he said somebody was responding to what Grok said about itself. Somebody had asked Grok, well, what do you feel about this? And it came back with some structured, content that had no meaning. And Mike was just like, let me do it again here. It doesn't seem to be working. I think I need to remind you that an AI program has no self-awareness. It has no knowledge of how it was built or what it does. It does not test itself.
There's no sentience.
It is simply taking whatever paragraph looks good because it answers the question. And so if you ask it, how do you feel about X? It goes out and finds somebody else's answer to that question. Stacy, over to you.
Yeah, Stacey.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, for those of us who think that we need a certain degree of deconstructivist thinking, if that's a correct word, I just want to point out that AI can be helpful in its cotton candy-like thinking. And what I mean by that is I often use AI to help break down other people's conversations that don't make sense to me. So, for example, there was a really interesting thread in OGM that had to do with it was Jack's thread, and I did something similar to what Kevin did, which was to feed in an entire call and to listen to it back on a podcast. And the fact that what it spit out to me, and I'll use the term cotton candy because maybe that's what it was, but that openness to me made perfect sense and allowed for the space to put in my own ideas of where I think things could be shifted, which is a good thing because to my thinking, that may be removing some of the bias that's so inherent in our society. So I just wanted to point out that while I don't like the idea of AI creating, I do like the idea of AI evaluating. Over.
Thanks. Gil, yeah.
Yeah.
Helping to evaluate, helping.
Hi, everybody. I love the phrase cotton candy. Hang on a second. Why can't I see anybody? I'm sorry, I'm on pad, so I'm a little discombobulated here. Speaker view. Okay, well, anyway. I love the phrase cotton candy of cognition, and you've heard me talk before about my strong opinions about the lack of consciousness and caring in these creatures. Excuse me. But I'm finding them enormously useful. And Doug, you said if it crossed over 15 to 20%, we discounted. Who is the we that you're referring to? Was that you?
I and my colleagues. We've all developed sort of AI spidey sense.
No, which is good. So I'm going to send you some stuff. I'm going to send you some test samples because the stuff that I'm seeing, and I guess the stuff that I'm generating, is feels really useful to me. Passes the crap and simplicity test. I mean, I know that it's working as stochastic parrot, but with a high degree of skill. To Stacy's point about breaking down conversations, I just did something yesterday where I put 5 times 50, 20. I put like 100 hours of coursework. Actually, not the course, not the audio. I put the decks for 100 hours of coursework into Google Notebook LLM, and asked for the podcast thing that it spits out, which are typically 10 minutes long, and typically fairly clever, and always the same voices and the same tone and. But anyway, this thing did a 50-minute podcast that I thought was remarkable in its nuance, structure. The first thing I did with Notebook LM when it first came out was I dropped in the Declaration of Leadership for Sustainable Business, which is a poster that I did 20 years ago, it was my distillation of the essence of that game. And it produced a podcast that was, number one, interesting. Number two, pretty true to the content. So that's the author's, my judgment of that. And startling in inferences that it delivered that were not on the page. Which, if I think about it, was also a stochastic parrot game, because it went into its vast resource of everything else and found associated But what it produced was actually useful. My judgment as author, as could I give this to somebody and be happy with what it provoked for them? Yes, I would have. And it reminds me, Doug, of the early days of desktop publishing. When all of a sudden we had, everybody had this graphic capability in their hands. And no surprise, most of what most people produced was crap. Like I can make a flyer that has 15 fonts on it. Like, yay, but I really shouldn't. And there was thought that would put, because that just doesn't work. And it takes actually some nuance and judgment and skill. And we thought that it would put graphic designers out of business, but in fact, it hasn't. And my favorite graphic designers are completely teched out and use all the whiz-bang tools they get their hands on to enhance their capability and design judgment and so forth. So you have this kind of, I think there's two worlds happening, one of which is people unskillfully using power tools. You don't put the table saw in the hands of your 4-year-old. You don't hand the keys to your Aston Martin to your 15-year-old. And there is skillful use of tools that becomes possible. I don't know if I shared the Gene Roddenberry story with you guys before, but so stop me if you've heard it. But apparently somebody came up to Roddenberry at a cocktail party and said, "Mr. Roddenberry, I really enjoy Star Trek, but 98% of it is crap." And Roddenberry, without missing a beat, said, "Yeah, but 98% of everything is crap." So that's my story on that.
Klaus, if I can just interject, I'm not in sharing what I shared. It's not a condemnation of AI as a tool.
Yeah.
It's a condemnation of AI as a source.
As a what?
As source.
Yeah. But I say to folks, Doug, I'm with you. I say this is a tool. It's not an oracle.
Right.
It's not a source of truth. I have people, we all see it. People say, "Well, the AI said," as if that really matters. It's everybody's got an opinion, including an AI.
Yeah, I think I was just in that same mode here. I was doing a presentation yesterday to this group here. It's a European-based organization that does project work for the World Bank and governments, for regenerative investing. And there are multiple groups there. This one particular group has 3,000 members, mostly volunteers, focused on the food system. And so they are working in Africa and in Asia and Europe. And I had a meeting with one of their founders and asked them, give me to present Food with Thought, the AI system that I've developed. And I asked him, give me a challenge, give me a problem you're working on, and let me respond. Let me respond through my AI system. And apparently, I came through with flying colors on that. It was a theory U type response where you had an iceberg model that transitioned into a phase 2 into a presencing explanation. I did an LLM podcast out of it. One report generated a 30-minute podcast that was very detailed and really quite impressive in the way they framed this. So yesterday we had a meeting with their team. They put the whole team together. I thought my daughter and I, she's doing marketing and branding. So I thought we were just talking about how can we, develop a pilot and contract this thing and so on. But we ran into this trust issue. I mean, I run into this buzzsaw of how are you programming this thing? So I explained the idea of curating your AI, to be a vertical embedded in a database that is trustworthy, right? That where you have vetted personally the information that goes into this thing. They couldn't get beyond this. How do you? I said I mean, the obvious thing that you want to do is engage with this AI, ask it all kinds of questions. How are you programmed? How do you think about this? Or ask it a question that you know the answer to, and then see what comes out of it. I can't disclose how I programmed it. I mean, that's my black box, right? But it was, yeah, so now I have to figure out how to follow up on this thing. But I really crashed on the trust issue. Why would we trust you, to curate an AI that we should work with and base our decision making on? That's a huge challenge. But I truly think that the idea of having a curated AI, not just the base, no matter what, whether you work with Gemini or OpenAI or whatever, you need to frame this thing. You need to put it into a box and feed it, the information you really wanted to work with. When they asked me why does your AI know more about what is regenerative agriculture and why should we trust it? I said, well, I mean, it has consensus opinion. And then you go, well, what is consensus opinion? It should be hierarchical, right? There should be a hierarchy in. I said, yeah, maybe, but if you take the Odell Institute and the Soil Health Institute and the extensions and you put all that together, there actually is agreement across the board on what constitutes soil health, right? It was, I mean, it's a slug,
So,
Well, the
so,
problem
so,
is Elon Musk showed what can be done to manipulate an AI and make it spit out things about white genocide in South Africa. So
Yeah.
everybody knows that example. So
so Klaus, what if you don't mention AI at all?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll
You
talk about.
provide a consultancy, you provide an expertise service,
Yeah.
but it's actually you.
I wasn't able to get, that was my mistake. I should have said, look, I'm 40 years in this
This
business, right?
it's all about who's driving. It's not about the vehicle.
Yeah.
Klaus, Klaus, you can still do that.
Yes, absolutely. Like you can pull it back and like just
I mean, how many people know what you've done already? Just pull it back, rebrand it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
No,
it's and it's you and your army of assistants.
and you've got this wonderful ability to use it internally for very low horsepower, high quality, automated output of response to client questions, needs, whatever. But they don't need to drive. They
yeah.
just want the output.
It definitely was a learning experience.
And yeah,
Man.
I understand in the Wall Street world, it's all AI everything. But from a business entrepreneurial place, it's about, meeting needs and delivering quality goods
Yeah.
Even
at
Donald
the
Trump
end
has,
of the day.
So
even
you're
Donald Trump has said that artificial intelligence is a terrible, terrible catchphrase. So I suggest that you call it cloned Klaus.
Yes.
K-L-O-N-E-D.
Mini
I think
gloves.
Jesse's been waiting to say something.
I've
Yes,
been
please.
thinking of this thing as an exoskeleton.
Yeah.
That's how I use it. And I saw somebody post a piece yesterday. At the bottom it said FMAI, formed mindfully with AI, as their disclosure of co-authorship. But Klaus, Klaus, you're not peddling an AI. You're competing with McKinsey, and you've got an army of postdocs and research assistants and versions of you and accumulated experience, and it is available through you. That sounds like an offer.
Thank you. Yeah, I know that's good feedback. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesse.
Thank you. I'd like to go back to Stacy's notion of bias, which I actually think stems from trust. And Mike noting the AI using it for inferences. And we use AI and Day Balancer to really define a problem space, leveraging the mom test. And we really don't have a lack of visions. Like everyone has a vision and you can see it, right? And what we don't like to do is disprove our hypotheses of how to manifest that or address these big wicked problems. So we match people with their target market to really ask those deeper questions of their customers, of the people that they want to serve. So, and they find out that the youth crime problem is really about an after-school programming in a specific neighborhood. And so, yeah, using AI for getting to the problem space and defining a very clear space to act on. And instead of, we can get into analysis paralysis using AI to just stay in the moral theater part. So getting to that actionable problem is really key. But yeah, I love what Stacy is talking about with bias because, and how that I see that is stemming from trust.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Jesse. Hi, Ken.
Good morning.
Good morning. Kevin, let's hear from you. You have so much going on in your life here.
Yeah, we are working on this conference in Chicago, Neighborhood Economics, end of September, 1st of October. And we've been noticed by several coalitions of hospitals doing the work we do at much greater scale than we have, because we got involved with the MacArthur Foundation, which is based there, but they're doing local, and Chicago Trust, and everybody's really opening up to us. And so these hospitals work on community health, but they don't really understand, how financial innovation can get their money out on the street lower than CDFIs are these wonderful things that don't work. Community development finance institutions, they become a lot like banks, but they used to be community development finance institutions. But after 2008, they swallowed all the clever risk-taking ones, and so now they're rigid and don't do much. And so all the creativity is down below the collateral that they demand. We work in neighborhoods where people die 10 years younger. Actually, in one neighborhood in Chicago, they die 20 years younger than the loop is 88, and we work in neighborhoods where people die at 58. So it's anyway, it's 20 years. And we're having to just personally, it's like, oh, this is where we could get an actual big viable business. This is my last time to do it. I'm hoping the young people step up, but it's just, I'm immersed with the fact that finally figured out what this business should be when I'm ready to hand it to somebody younger, and none of those folks are really stepping up. So it's we're going to make some money, and who knows what the future is. And, you know, it's going to be fine with me to go back to working on a book if this business doesn't survive, but I know what the model looks like. So we're looking to maybe working with this Black woman that I've worked with for a few years, Stephanie Swepson Twitty, to try to find some young MBA type. The space I work in is typically, I scout on the edge until you can hire an MBA. And MBAs are not, you don't want them to be creative. You want them to do complex, repetitive tasks when there's a taxonomy and there's structure. And they work really well in structure, but they don't work well in unformed situations. So it's time to find a young, you know, MBA of color to build the business that could be here. Or it might go away. I'm just having to live in this liminal space. I'm sorry, we're finally moving into an apartment post-Helene end of next month, because we're still don't know what FEMA is going to do for paying our house or not paying for our house. So I've been in a liminal state, and next week I will live somewhere. And through this weird pricing, we have an 11-month lease because they're really weird on their pricing. An 11-month was really cheap, and a 12-month was like $5,000 more. So it's like we manipulated their inefficient pricing and found the little slot. And I discovered don't want to live on a farm anymore. I want to live walkable to a cafe and restaurants and easy flat walking spaces. And so my 15 years on a farm, I loved it, but you know, the river took it away. And being in a place where I can walk to a store and a cafe and a restaurant is better. So you know, it's weird to have finally figured out what the business model is, and you realize you're not the guy to do it. So, you know.
How's the recovery effort in Asheville going?
Oh, the money they promised isn't coming. You know, that's, you know, it's, and nobody knows where it is, and you know, it's how much the state is doing really good things, and everything we relied on from the federal government. You can't, there's not even somebody to tell you an answer to where the money they promised might be. It's just, you know, and FEMA folks are now doing immigration. So finding somebody who answers the phone is, you know, we will be devastated for years. And, you know, our state does as good as they can. And the federal thing is in an uncertain state. So we're getting lots more floods because the land was scoured and there's no good, you know, bioremediation at scale. But Riverlink is getting some money. You know, there's some things happening, but it's basically piecemeal, not going well. People are miserable. People are moving away from specifically Swananoa, who are deeply involved, because it's just so fucking sad. And I'm not going back to Swananoa. It's the devastation and sadness and the trauma that's in the land that you can see is just too much. I'm getting away. So I'm going to the city, and I was really involved in my community, and just, you know, people can't bear it. The woman who did the best relief work, Beth Trigg, is in the south of France for 2 weeks, and hope she might be able to engage some when she comes back, but she's got more firm compassion than anybody, and she's given up for a while. So people are giving up. We don't have a grocery store. We don't have a post office. Our restaurants are gone. There's no, you know, Ostrom says you need a place where people meet up occasionally, randomly, to govern a watershed or a community. We've lost all those places where people gather, mostly. And so, you know, we're a low status neighborhood that will be increasingly devastated in its social fabric.
Boy, that's tough.
Yeah, I can't deal with it much. You know, just even the folks who were real seriously compassionate longtime workers are saying, you know, the, the sadness is coming up at throat level. You know, it's just about to make folks drown in the sadness. So that's all I'll say. And please don't ask me again.
I know you don't have any data, but what percentage of the population in these most impacted areas have left town and given up?
I know folks who were deeply involved who've left is the interesting thing. Folks who were standing tall during recovery are walking away. You know, the mutual aid groups are broken. All the groups that were paid a little bit higher than mutual aid are also broken. I mean, the voluntary mutual aid groups shut down, and now the ones that got money to do that work in the middle can't deal with the job anymore.
I mean, to think this is just one spot in the country, and there's so many other places, you know, that have had similar levels of destruction. I mean, it's really shocking.
Yeah. We have serious work going on with some groups trying to do circular economy stuff. And, you know, I'm going to let somebody else be hopeful about what to rebuild in that space. And I'm not going to, I can't pay attention to it anymore. It costs too much.
Thanks, Kevin. Kalia, how are you doing? Are you there, Kalia? No.
Must have stepped away.
Yeah. Okay. Ken, how are you doing? You want to do a check-in?
Sure. Kevin, I'm just moved by your plight, and I really feel that pain, and it's just tragic. Doesn't even begin to cover it. You know, just horrible. After 3 months of trying almost every day, we finally got an appointment at the Spanish consulate for our visas. It's coming up in September, and then learned this week from somebody who got their appointment last week. They were kind enough to put up a long document on one of the forums of what they learned. So I think we're in pretty good shape. We should be able to get approved, but it's taken about 3 months. So if all goes well, we're pulling up stakes here December, January timeframe, and heading off to Spain, to Valencia, where we will live within walking distance of grocery stores and restaurants and cafes. We were in Valencia last spring in April. Really loved it. I'm very surprised because I'm not a city person, but the city is clean, it's green, there's lovely parks, really great use of tax dollars. Every day I saw groups of 2 and 3 people pushing carts with barrels and dustpans and brooms, and they were cleaning up the litter. The only place I saw litter was in the old city where the tourists go, because the tourists just drop shit without thinking about it, but the Spaniards are very clean. Apparently in the 90s, they were kind of down at the heels, and they did a lot of urban planning, and they expanded the roads and put in dedicated bike lanes with, you know, barriers. And so there's bike lanes on every single major street. Lots of people on bikes, lots of people on scooters. The public transit, you can get anywhere you need to go in the city without having to walk more than about 10 or 15 minutes to go from some place to another. As long as you tag on and within, you know, if you get on a bus and then transfer to a tram, as long as you do that within an hour, there's no transfers. It just automatically, the computer knows it has one trip. And to recharge the card that we got was 10 euros for, no, it's 4 euros for 10 trips. So it's about 40 cents to travel around the city. Just, it felt so civilized. And then I noticed that the drivers are really courteous. Like, you know, they don't run red lights. They actually stop. When the light turns yellow, they stop. And we have a friend who lives there, and we were driving with them and found out why. There's traffic cams at every intersection, and if you run a light, you get a ticket in the mail. And you get 3 of them, they suspend your license. So people really obey the traffic laws. We were also there during the blackout, when the whole peninsula was blacked out, and all the headlines in the papers are saying Spain's in chaos. There was no chaos. Civilians got out of their cars and directed traffic at the intersections. Buses let other cars go. Restaurants were saying, we have no refrigeration. Come drink our beer before it gets warm, you know? And I was talking to this young woman, probably in her early 20s, later on at night, right before the power came on, we were at a restaurant that there was no power, but they had gas stoves so they could serve food. And she said, I got off the train like 10 minutes before the power went out, and I was trying to get to my friend's house, and the power went out, and all I had was €8 in my pocket. And the cab driver said, Señorita, no problem, no hay problema, no problema, you know. And he said, just here's my phone number, pay me when the power comes back on. And he drove her across the city. And I'm like, it was so uplifting to be around this kind of friendliness and this kind of cooperation. And so we're really looking forward to getting over there, because after 35 years in Marin, as much as I love the place, people are horribly aggressive drivers out here. They turn their backs on people. It's not the same place that we moved to. So many trees have been cut down, so much development's gone on, and you know, it's a hyper-active place. And the worst drivers in the world are the ones in the Teslas. You know, the newer your car, the more expensive the car, the more of an asshole you are when you drive, is my experience. So we'll be able to live without a car over there, and we'll be able to live about between half and 2/3 of the cost of living. 2/3 would be like really living well. So it's going to cost about half of what it lives here, which will help our retirement savings go a long way. So we're pretty excited. But it's a huge amount of work, and it's been really emotional going through, you know, all these boxes that I've had stored and pulling out things and saying, okay, I'm not going to bring this with me, and that's going to go. So that's really brought up a lot of stuff, and so it's daunting and exciting and lovely and scary all at the same time.
What's the city?
Valencia.
Valencia. Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
We have very good friends who were all set to make the same kind of move. They're about 10 years older than you, but then they found out that they knew they needed to have health insurance, and they knew that Medicare doesn't cover them over there.
Mhm.
And they found that because the husband had had prostate cancer, pre-existing condition, nobody would insure them for
Oh,
any kind of reasonable price.
I'm really sorry to hear that. We worked with a woman who said, yes, if you have pre-existing conditions, you know, disclose them, but you might pay a higher premium. And so we've got a quote. We've got, you know, we're not buying the insurance until right before our appointment. It takes about 2 weeks to get the paperwork processed, because you have to pay for the whole year in advance, but you can delay it by a couple of months. And so we know that we're covered. They've already accepted us. And filling out the questionnaire was amazing. Like, they do not check your U.S. health records. They rely on you to just be disclosing what's going on. And fortunately, whatever pre-existing conditions we both have are not serious. They're, you know, kind of regular old stuff, no cancers and everything like that. So
Yeah. Well, if you were not to disclose and then something recurred, they would have the right to unplug.
they would.
Okay, you lied.
Yeah.
So
And how old are you guys?
my wife is 72, I'm 68.
Okay. And so does Medicare do you any good at all?
Not at all. Medicare
Okay.
does not work outside the States. So actually,
Or you'd have to come back to the States to get treatment, kind of thing.
yeah, but why would we do that when we can get great treatment over there?
No, I understand. I
Yeah.
understand. Yeah.
So we're actually going to cancel our Medicare, because we each pay $185 a month, and that will just about cover the cost of insurance. I think it's about $2,000 a person per year.
Mhm.
So you know, really reasonable compared to what we used to pay. I mean, before I went on Medicare, when I went on Medicare, my health insurance premium was dropped by $9,000 a year,
Yeah.
which is just freaking
Yeah.
insane, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're once we get there, we'll cancel our Medicare. That'll cover our health insurance over there. And the non-lucrative visa means you can't work. It's interesting the way the law is written. It says you can't work in Spain and you can't work remotely. But people who've been there, once you've been there for a year, you re-up and you're approved for 2 years. And people who've been approved for that 2-year period have done work remotely, and the government's gone after them. They've gone to court and they've won the right, because the law is worded very wonkily. So
Mm.
I should be able to work again after I've been there for a year. So
Mm.
looking forward to a year off of learning the language and the culture and getting used to the place. And then I have a bunch of contacts in Europe. I've worked in Europe before, so I should be able to pick up some more income once we've been there for a year, and that'll also help.
So you're not a retiree visa then?
It's called the non-lucrative visa, and it's for people who are retired. Yeah, I have to submit a letter saying I will not work.
Okay.
Hmm. So this is permanent, huh?
This is permanent. Yeah. It's not, we started talking about this 3 years ago when we thought we'd go to Italy, and then found out that Italy's tax structure would take about 32% of our Social Security, which made it untenable. It's not due to the political atmosphere. It's simply economics. I can't stay in the Bay Area. It's too expensive. However, given the political situation, it feels like we're actually fleeing the country. The police state is in full force and unfolding before our eyes. And I think most people were asleep about that. So happy to be getting out and sad to be having to leave because of that reason. That's not the reason we're leaving, but it's certainly added to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And which passport do you or your wife have?
U.S.
You don't have any European passport?
Nope.
Okay.
We're both, my family's been here for I don't know, 5, 6 generations going back to the mid-80s. So I have and it's all English, Irish, Scottish, and German for me. And my wife has Polish and Romanian, and her great grandmother was from Romania, so she could get a Romanian passport, but she was investigating. She said they're just really shady in Romania. It's like you get this feeling of, oh, I gotta take a shower after talking to these people. So I don't think we're going to go that route.
That may not be the personal brand you want.
No.
Yeah.
At least that's not Serbian.
Albanian.
Yeah.
Hmm. Jesse.
Has anybody, and Ken, have you heard of Mondragon?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Of course, yeah.
I absolutely am so inspired by that and am positioning our organization to do that in a way, in a different way. So I would want to flee there into that model.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm curious, what is stopping us to create something like that here? I know it's
Entire socioeconomic political structure, for
but
starters.
I know, but undercover kind of I don't know. I always look at possibilities and not what's not possible. So
Yeah. I mean, it's just the way things are structured here is if you're not maximizing shareholder value, then you can be sued for breach of fiduciary duty. It's all about extraction. There's a whole, it's got to
but there's
be
so many
changed.
different models like REI or PCC that have cooperative models that have worked. So can't we scale that into a more, I don't know, why not?
Barriers to entry is the economic phrase.
Hmm.
But there are
Why-
C corps and
why-
there are
why-
co-ops, but they don't apply in a lot of places. That's the problem.
Why not? Why can't we is a much better question, Jesse, than why isn't it happening?
Yeah,
In fact,
why can't we is really what I'm getting at because I'm talking to,
no, I mean, no, what you're actually saying is how could we?
how could we?
Not why can't we, but how could we?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly that. And, and it's happening. It's, there's growth in the ESOP, employee stock ownership plan sector. There's growth in the co-op sector. There's a surprising growth in the stewardship trust sector.
Yeah.
There are legal structures more advantageous for ESOPs than for co-ops, but the law seems to be moving. There's money moving. There's a bunch of funds that have been built to support co-op and ESOP, various kinds of employee ownership and trust development. We tried to start one a few years ago. We've laid that down, but there's other people making that effort. There's hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe billions of dollars of capital in motion on this, and it's not the normal game.
Yes.
But it doesn't have to be the normal game because you can write corporate bylaws that charter a corporation to different purposes and purely maximization of financial return. The other thing, Ken, to your point about fiduciary duty, I've been touching on this in some of the speeches I've been giving lately, but fiduciary duty doesn't mean maximize return to shareholders. The word fiduciary doesn't have to do with money, it has to do with trust. And the statutory responsibility of a fiduciary is to attend to all that matters to the whatever the counterparty term is. Doug, you probably know what that term is. But like to take care of them, and you're violating fiduciary duty if you don't attend to all relevant risks that concern them, which is why the Texas and Florida proposed laws to instruct fiduciaries to violate fiduciary duty is really cuckoo stuff. And that's the norm. Yeah, that's the norm in the thinking that everybody is in. But the law, I think, allows for different moves, and certainly the money is moving in that direction. The economic benefits of employee ownership are strikingly clear. The deal structure is a complicated issue because you no longer have just, owners and investors. You have owners and investors and the larger employee pool of owners. So how you build the stack is not trivial, but it's doable.
Yeah,
One of
and
the-
I mean, Mitch just shared with me a new way of even establishing legalities. It's going to take a long time, and there people are going to actually have to work hard at it, and we might not see it even in our lifetime. But I do see
Well,
possibilities.
the
I am
people,
seeing,
I mean, people are working hard on it, and
yeah,
Mondragon is a great case in point because it's a proof that something is possible at scale. This is not just your neighborhood food co-op. This is, what is it, like 80,000 employees and a multi-billion-dollar corporation that's significant economic force in Spain.
Yeah.
Proves that something is possible.
yeah. And so if we start instead of isolating ourselves in our abilities, I mean, I think we're kind of conditioned to work on our own thing and start connecting dots. I think especially just visualizing the dots as they are and what could be. I think visualizing data in itself really does inspire.
Yeah.
There are, at least in the world that I'm traveling in these days, there are folks very much doing that. They're sort of operating at a meta level
Mhm.
of individual initiatives that the metaphor I invoke is that it's a mosaic of efforts, and each piece of the mosaic is very focused and energized and extended in their piece of the mosaic. But a lot of those pieces do start to coalesce an ecosystem, start to coalesce a network, start to coalesce an organism that operates by principles in service to life, operates by principles in service to resource and value flows rather than currency centric. A lot of those folks are also practicing different and transformative organizational approaches, management, decision-making, consent process models and approaches that are not the norm. As an attorney, I practice unlaw, which means that I start with what folks want to achieve and create and how they want to work. And then I help modify, adapt, plug, play, and create a mosaic orientation approach to how they interface with the legal systems, requirements, regulations, and all that. And rather than the other way around. And there is a lot of creative possibility and flexibility. For the most part, the legal profession doesn't know how to do that because they've never actually sat on the side of the entrepreneur or the cooperative or the collaborative. So they don't understand what's needed or desired as a practical operating rubber meets the road reality And so their only palette is the post office of what you do for what situation. And it's always fitting the situation to the practice and to the structure or model. And that's not a good thing to have defining and controlling and imposed on the way people co-create together. It's not fit for use. And the principal reason is because the legal system is not in service to people co-creating and connecting and flowing together. It's created in service to defining what is the penalty or consequence for breaching whatever the agreement or regulatory schema is that's operating. So it's a penalty system. It's not a generative creative system.
Well, I love the unlaw. It's like unschooling notion. And if you wanted to talk about it later, I would love to.
You and I are destined. We haven't figured out the time zone yet, but I am still headed your way in my heart. So, like,
Thank
yes,
you.
we can do that. We
I
absolutely
would love to
can do
map the Mondragon partnership model for our cooperative vision. So, and using, unlaw is just a beautiful prospect. So, and we'd like to do it in a place-based version, so by zip code. So we are mapping it place-based. So thank you. I'm looking forward to
Yeah,
it.
I think
absolutely.
I see an interesting shift in sentiments, in the community. Bent is attracting a lot of well-off retirees now from California, from Washington, and so on, because it's a great place to retire. And so there's a lot of money floating in, but not just money, but talent. So I got called into a meeting with Business Oregon, which is a state organization, a state agency, and that their mission is to direct the investment of the state government, to build infrastructure, to do things. And so I said, well, let me just give you an example. And I did a gap analysis for the food system in the high desert, and developed a stack of the top 5 investments that would really move the needle in the local food system, in the farm-to-market food system. And here is the infrastructure that's missing, and here are the investment points, right? And so that resulted in a meeting with the director of EDCO, which is the Economic Development Organization for Oregon, and the director of USDA for Rural Development, and so a couple of investors. So I got a call last week, and I met with a retired Salesforce executive. And the guy is really, sort of a high-powered character. And he's basically saying, what do you need? Where do we start? Now, what are we going to do here? And so there is a recognition in the sort of retired business community, or in the support organizations, that, what, we got to do something here locally, because you're looking, and my entire focus is on base of economy. That was my last newsletter, base of economy, economics theory, right? Which means that some 50% in the US of the population lives paycheck to paycheck, can't handle a $500 emergency, and are getting increasingly squeezed. So when you look at taking $1 trillion out of the economy that is serving basically this base of economy, base of pyramid economy, that has serious impacts at the community level. We already see the local food bank getting swamped. And so the challenge really is, the opportunity right now really is, that you have people who would otherwise see if they want to buy another boat, or what trip they're going on next, all of a sudden sort of shift their calendar and see, where's the action, where can I meaningfully engage here. And the key issue, that's missing is a common vision. It's It's a picture of what could be, where you could go. And so I see this as, and this is where AI can really kick in, right? Because you can really use a well-curated AI to create a very localized vision of what is possible in this community based on the socioeconomic conditions that are around you. So I'm actually quite excited about this. I told him, he goes, what would be a good project? I said, why don't we do a pilot here in Bend, and see and showcase what could be done, if you really engage and you start at food, because that's where the pain point is, and where the pain point is almost instantly, hitting us, because 2-3 months down the road, these monies are gone. They cut off all the grants to the nonprofits, right? School meals, Meals on Wheels.
So, Claus, there is something going on in Bend already that is very cooperative and very, there's a whole movement already. So I'll connect you with that person there. So I don't want to reinvent wheels here. I want to like leverage the bright spots that are already been, are on its way. And
Totally, yeah, thanks.
yeah, awesome.
Yeah, so I think that's happening in every community.
I think so. And we
Uh,
need to connect the communities because there are so many different efforts going on, and people are kind of still decentralized in their efforts. And then someone gets excited and they start their own version. And we have to have open door policy between all of these ideas. And so it's not like another login.
Yeah. See, and the AI gives you an opportunity to collect best practice examples from around the country, right? Because so when you have a well-curated AI, if you are in any community anywhere in the country, and you feed in, here's my condition, here is what we're living with. The AI can say, well, these guys in this city did that. That seems to be so when you can bring together these best practice scenarios, and then there are some underlying commonalities, structures, right? Building a local currency. There are certain things that anybody could use, if the information became available, and you can use AI. You don't have to build white papers and Google documents and all this stuff. You can have the AI actually inform you and talk you through it. So that, I think, is going to be a really powerful opportunity to deploy. Now we're all quiet.
It's okay. Quiet's okay.
My mom 30 years ago said, there will be one version of a car, one version of a house. And it's so weird because it kind of has come true. And I almost feel like there's a sense that there is uh, a coming together, a converging property of both worlds. And it's an interesting thing to even look at in this. We are alive at this like change. And I feel so incredibly thankful that I'm in this transition. And I'm like thinking, what are our children going to do with this? We got to give them the right tools and know how to use them properly. But we have 15 minutes left on the call, and I'm curious about our ability to focus and our ability to, converge and diverge at the same time. And passing the baton on to our children, what can we do? I think it's really going to have to come down to focusing and deciding how to work together versus in a decentralized fashion. I get on these calls for years. I listen to everyone's thing that they're working on, and I'm just confused by why we're not collaborating more effectively amongst this particular group. I'd like to challenge us to do that. It's not like we all have to work on the same thing, but we can generate a more collaborative approach. Just by even like sharing operational burden, because that seems like the biggest thing that has us, our barriers to entry, as you will, our own personal barriers to success is operational burden. And if we're all trying to do the operations alone, the administrative costs, we could share some of that stuff.
Stacey, what place are you in right now?
What place? What do you mean by the word place?
From this conversation, where did this put you?
Honestly, I already have a membrane around me. So it didn't put me anywhere. I feel Jesse's frustration. I no longer let it affect me. So I'm kind of apathetic. Over. Thank you for asking, though.
I liked the silence. And I'm reminded of Jerry's reminiscences about Quaker meetings. But the silence sometimes goes on a long time until someone's moved to speak. So for me, it was very refreshing because it's so rare in the online life that we share together. Jesse, I really appreciate what you said about what you're feeling is the missed opportunities for collaboration among us. Let me say two things. I'm not drawn to what I think you're implying because I'm full up on projects and don't need another project. And so don't want to take on a project for us to do together particularly, although I'm open to changing my mind if something amazing comes, gets dropped on the table. But that's not what I'm looking for on the one hand. On the other hand, I did an audit a few weeks ago of my online time, and it was ridiculous, the amount of time I'm spending in Zoom meetings of various kinds. And I've decided to prune them way down. And this is one that I'm keeping. So there's a kind of collaboration that this is that I really value and that I'm committed to. This is one of two or maybe three that are locked in, not to be lost, and a lot of the others have gone away. So I feel that the sharing that we do here is very collaborative and enriching. I take notes and I sometimes pull pieces of writing out of the things that we've talked about here. So I appreciate that. And I guess it's a third thing, which is that maybe in the 400 people that are on your platform, I don't know how many of them are OGM people, but maybe we could all pop in there and do whatever profiling of needs and offers that you have, receptor sites for, and see if something emerges from that. And I'd be willing to do that.
I love that idea because we have quite a few on there. So let's definitely do that offline for sure, Gil. And also not doing the same project. I live alone together with I'm getting married this Sunday. Been with my partner for 7 years.
Congratulations.
What's the rush?
And we own our own homes and we live apart together.
Uh-huh.
I really see, I live that. And I think that can be translated over to business and nonprofits where we're doing work alone together.
Uh-huh.
So it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be the same product, but it does
Mm.
need to have the same kind of operational excellence and maybe some principles that we all agree on so that we continue to like go back to that. And I think we can create, we have incredible brains here. I think we can create a small little Mondragon thing that ends up modeling something great.
Jesse, I invite you, or maybe you and your pet AI, to draft something very short about what working alone together might be.
I would love
I like the provocation of the living alone together, working alone together.
Yeah.
So just spin it up a little bit more, not a lot, not a manifesto, like a paragraph,
Okay.
a sentence, 100 words, so something really tight that conveys the spirit of what you're carrying here.
If I can
So-
push back a little bit on Jesse, when you say that we're not collaborating, I find this to be a very collaborative space,
Yeah.
5 minutes at a time. And I'm probably the one who abuses the wisdom of this crowd most because I'm constantly saying, hey, I'm doing a paper on this. Who are the three people I need to talk to? I think at the top of the hour, I said, hey, I'm going to Taipei and the Philippines. Who knows something about the culture and the people? You know, what is it that I have to really watch out for if I want to have the full experience?
Mike,
And I get
just
great feedback. The other thing that a true collaboration can do very effectively is let people know when they're about to do something stupid. That's an incredibly valuable source of feedback. And again, 5 minutes is often all it takes. Some of these check-ins
yeah.
enabled me to say, well, this is what I'm thinking, and I read this thing, which seems really good. And then somebody comes back and says, no,
Hey, Mike,
go here.
you may think you're abusing this this space. For me, you feed me every time. So thank you.
Well, thank you. But I
So-
will continue to ask a few questions and get lots of great feedback. It's a great forum. But as far as, you know, getting everybody involved in one project, I think that's not what this group's for in my mind.
Yeah,
So
that's
speaking of creativity, it's Ken Homer poem time,
Yeah.
or we should get somebody else to do it.
We still have 5 minutes on the call. I mean, I'm happy to go
Yeah.
if we're ready to end, but I want to give space to the folks.
I'd love to throw something in response to Jesse's call to action. So the challenge is these are sort of the touch points. The challenge to me is the lack of a kind of universal interoperability. You know, it's taken several years for me as an individual to get to I'm ADD, so my executive function didn't kick in until like 5 years ago. I'm coming up on 70. So like I'm just beginning to be able to use tools that most normal mortals like have been using for decades to work with and coordinate with others. And each person has different aptitudinal dimensions. So one person is a Gantt chart person, and that makes me like completely want to kill somebody. And I'm a Gantt, I'm a Gantt, and they're a Kanban person. And like, so there's all of those technological, intangible diversities just between, people working together collaboratively on a thing. And then you have varying degrees and levels of ego attachment to mine rather than transcendent of that all for one for all. Hey, I'm doing this and I figured that out, and you're doing that and you figured this out. And, you can learn from me and I can learn from you, and we can, flow together to mutual benefit. And that sort of concatenates up into different orgs and different, cooperatives working together, not on the same thing, but being connected and flowing between. And and Stacy invoked the term membrane, and I think that's really, really, really on point. That circumstantially, people working together usually at the event horizon that you're existing, that I'm existing, that most of my clients and projects and partners are existing. It's all we can do to keep doing us. And that tends to form a membrane as boundary and limitation based on time, based on resource, based on capacity to do more. And making the membranes more porous, if not dissolving them all together, has a lot to do with ownership and transcending the ownership meme, transcending the mine. And the most liberating and powerful thing in connection with that, that it took for me to lose that completely, was severing the quid pro quo, something for something. I don't offer my services on a transactional basis. If somebody knocks and I can help and it's in my spot, then I'm in service to. And how I meet my needs is my own business, my own inquiry, and I live based on an appreciation economy. So people that appreciate me, whether it's being in the world or whether it's helping them directly with a thing or whether it's whatever, you know, it comes from them going, I really value, appreciate you. Thank you for your help. And how can I reciprocate? That's not a transaction. It's a whole different orientation. And what it did was it freed me of ownership, and it freed me of scarcity and fear and worrying about being in service. And that transcending that is not for the weak of heart and the common man in the system we're living in. It is really, really hard for people to let go of the fear and the scarcity and the concern about how am I going to, survive. And I think that's the biggest operand preventing the kind of open flow that you're inviting. But I'm in support of, I'm a card carrying believer member of that. And I'm down. You can count me in.
You, Doug.
Thank you, Doug. I think we all have been on a journey. How long have we been doing this? I was there from the start. Gene Bellinger actually connected me with Jerry, and that's been, what, 6 years? I mean, how long have we been doing this? And I think we've all been on a journey. I mean, I most certainly had an opportunity to grow because of all the connections within OGM. So I'm like, hugely thankful. And just like Gil, this is the one item that's on my calendar. That's the one meeting I don't want to miss. Okay, Ken, I think we're ready for you.
Okay, this is a poem called American Funeral by Greg Kimura. He sits in a raft in a river with no water that winds through sandstone canyons and green valleys before passing through the gates of heaven. The old raft, a sunken coat of flesh that once ripped up huge chunks of Stanford Stadium turf at left tackle, class of 1949, that once built tuna fish sandwiches for church youth groups, that made sloppy, wet love to an appreciative life, now lays boxed in the ground but he sits alone in a raft waiting. Waters that could have carried him down the river lie locked inside Protestant bodies, maintaining an unfortunate sense of dignity, decorum, and strength. Oceans of roiling grief sit in the pews, requiring release, but we have forgotten how to do this. In the old days, we knew how to prepare and anoint the old raft for its journey, knew how to create the ritual that released the sacred storms that sent him on his way. And as much as he needed our tears, and as much as we needed to weep, but today our grief lies embedded in our bodies, and we carry them out into the world where they come out later in ways not so elegant or beautiful or as necessary as tears. And he sits in a raft in a river with no water.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Have a-
you.
And Klaus, thanks for rising to the occasion and providing the little bit of glue that
Yes.
makes one of these discussions work.
Thank you. All right.
Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.